Speaking of reliability, a podcast with good friends talking with you about reliability engineering topics. Welcome to Speaking of Reliability. This is Fred Schenkelberg.
And this is Carl Carlson.
Hey, Carl, last week I was talking to Chris Jackson, and it was about a listener's question about sample size. And I don't know, I'm quite sure that you've gotten that question a bazillion times. How many samples do I need?
Yes.
And so Chris came up with this really cool analogy. He says, if you ask me how much fuel do I need for my car, people naturally will ask and respond with, well, where are you going? How much, and what's your gas mileage, and maybe a handful of other things, and do you need to, if there's no gas stations where you're going, do you need to haul fuel? It really is dependent on where you're going. And I think I even phrased, I sub-quoted you quoting Covey, is, got to keep the end in mind. You got to know where you're going kind of thing.
Absolutely. Every step.
But it's one of the things that, we talked about in the chapter in the book that talks about vision, but that's not the same as setting a reliability goal. We want this product to last for 5 years under these conditions, blah, blah, blah. That's a goal or an objective or a specification, something like that. But I don't think that's what we talked about in that chapter. It was more akin to, well, where are you going? Are you doing a cross-country trip here, or are you going to the store?
Yeah, exactly. And I remember thinking about this years ago. And for listeners, Fred's referring to Chapter 5 of our new book, which is Develop a Reliability Strategic Vision. And I remember years ago thinking about this subject because we had goals in General Motors for reliability. This is back in the 1980s, late 80s. And it was a stated goal. It's essentially a number. And I remember thinking, that's not enough, because the number doesn't describe all the information. For example, we know the definition of reliability has 4 elements. You have a probability statement of some kind, but you also have the intended life, you have the time element, you have the conditions of use, and all of that's part of it. And in our chapter, we have even more than that. In other words, it isn't just a reliability requirement,
right?
With its 4 elements. It's more than that. It answers the questions, like you mentioned, about how much gas do you need, and you have to have that vision of in a full 365 degrees, 360 degrees of information in order to really know where you're going. So yeah, there's a lot to this subject of reliability strategic vision, and the word strategic was part of it, because we want to know not just the reliability vision, the reliability number vision or requirement vision, but from a strategy standpoint, that includes business. And are you developing a new reliability department? Do you want to have a bunch of reliability engineers? Do you want to be larger than or better in reliability than your competition? Where do you want to go in 1 year, 3 year, 5 years? Is all part of it.
Yeah. Now, at first when I think we were building the steps that we outline in the book on a structure that you had put together some time prior, and the first part was the vision, and I balked at that a bit because I have seen way too many corporate missions and vision statements, and as a good excuse to go to the Bahamas for a week or so, and they're just a plaque on the wall, and nobody knows what they are, what they mean, or they're generic enough that the one at HP could have applied to NASA. I mean, it just really wasn't helpful. But it's as we developed it and you defined more of what this is, I don't know that it's the right word, but it defines what I think we're talking about in the book, is that it's the big, and not the big picture, but it's how does reliability as a feature of your product set and your customer service and your shipping and your treatment of supply chain partners and the whole life cycle and all the interactions that your products and services have, do you want to be best in class? Do you want to be average and not stand out as bad or good? Or do you want to be absolute lowest cost and reliability, is not a part of what you want to feature on your product? How does it fit versus other priorities?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, this comes about from it's demonstrated in our bicycle examples, because you have one bicycle, like the Pro Series, and it has its own strategic vision of where it wants to go, because you're talking about road racing teams. And so long-term reliability considerations are going to be different than one of the other series, like the Enthusiast series, which is the typical ride for fun, recreation, fitness, that kind of thing. And those are going to have different reliability considerations.
Yep. But there's different trade-offs in that market, not just, in the product itself. If I want to speed, at the top end Pro Series, I want the lightest possible bike with the most ability to transfer power from the rider to the ground, and it has to last the race. It's a month in France. Yeah. That's as long as it needs to last. And they even don't bulk too much if they have to jump off the bike and get on the second one, because they carry 2 or 3 extras in a car behind them.
It's so important to know the overall vision, to use that word, of what your usage is. And whereas the Intro series, for example, that's the lower cost. And so the trade-off, like you talked about, that's what made me think of it. So you're going to have a cost trade-off there. You're not going to have a very expensive Intro series. So you got to be low in terms of cost. You still want it to be reliable, but maybe not as reliable as the Pro series. Right. And in terms of what the expectations are from customers.
Yeah. And so each division, as we kind of called them, or series of models, took into different considerations that created a different vision statement. Now, part of it was, it's not the reliability person's, if you're putting together a plan or you're the one tapped, Fred, you're the reliability guy now. It's not your job to write that vision. You might, because if nobody else knows what it is, I advocate just state something and write it down and send it around and see how it flies. And maybe it'll become adopted, or it might be stating the obvious, depending on the culture of your organization. But sometimes you need to go talk to people and your senior management and saying, all right, I know you're talking about costs and you're talking about feature sets and delivery times and quality of the product and all these other issues that are in a strategic bowl here that you were trying to push products through. Where's reliability and durability and all these things fit into it? And that doesn't have to be a long conversation, but it's one to get a very clear statement that makes sense to the rest of the organization. It goes back to your 365 circle thing. I didn't like to let you go with that
one. Oh, and there's so much to this subject. Let me start out by reiterating what you said at the beginning. Here's what it's not. It's not a mission statement. And so we want to be really clear to listeners that when you do this first step of the 6-step process and talk about reliability, strategic vision, we're not looking for something to put on the wall. We're looking for something that infuses your path, so you know where you're going. And then we have to know what we're up against, because a lot of companies have a really good vision of what they want to be for quality, which might be the shorter term, and we want to get out the gate without a lot of problems, or we want to do this or that, and defects, etc. And they may not have thought about the longer term. So that's part of the discussion. And then a lot of companies focus on warranty because they're very cost-based, and of course you have to be aware of warranty. But warranty is only part of the picture, because you may want your product to last well beyond what the warranty is. And so we have to really surface all these different topics. I can't tell you how many times I've been to a company and I say, how long do you want your product to last? well, the warranty is,
Yeah.
and then they go into this cost thing. Oh,
Yeah.
well, what about your reputation when the product fails outside of warranty?
Yeah. Or even fails initially out of the box. That's still a warranty
Yeah,
hit, but it's way more expensive than
yeah.
just to replace the product. When you're listing these different, approaches, I'm thinking of solar panels.
Hmm.
There's a large initial investment to install a solar system. And the design intent is that it doesn't really pay for itself unless it has its function for quite a while. It has to actually work without a lot of maintenance or repairs or service or anything for a long time. And the hard part is that it's a very long time for some of these systems and parts of their equipment and so on. So their vision is, this is tied to the cost equation for the customer to actually pick it up. It has to be trusted to last a long time. And that's more akin to a vision statement, is that the reliability is vital for our products because it has to have enough trust in that system for people to make the purchase decision. As opposed to an inkjet printer, the printer itself, the customer, they're not terribly expensive. They're almost the price of a package of ink for an inkjet printer these days. They're probably less,
That's right.
right? So it's a hassle to go buy a new printer, and it's kind of wasteful for the materials to go into the trash. But it's not a major investment like a solar panel thing. But the vision for the printers, and I'm going to paraphrase what I would think it would be way back when, was it has to last long enough that the person is happy with it, that they buy more ink. And if it lasts for 5 years and they buy 3 rounds of ink for the thing, then that's our profit. That's where we make money as a company. And the quality of it is what keeps you buying that brand. And so it was a combination of, it has to last long enough for people to buy more ink. And 2, the way to do that is because it has really good quality and maintains it over time. That's more akin to a strategic vision statement than 98% reliable over 5 years, blah, blah, blah.
No, they're very, very good. And it's a discussion. I remember early in my consulting career, like when I left GM and went consulting, and now we're talking over 20 years ago, when I did the reliability consulting that would lead towards a reliability plan, I knew the first thing I had to do, I just knew this, is to talk to management and see where do they see this company going? How important is reliability? I didn't want to ask them that question to get some canned answer. I wanted to get a sense from them as to how important this is. And then I talked to the employees and see what their view is. And that was my immersion in the subject of reliability strategic vision, is to see where are they headed. And it may not be very good. And frankly, I've even used some, if there's a deficit in the vision, I like to get it solved and get the company focused on that. But it can also be a gap. In other words, if they have no vision at all, that's a gap.
Well, sometimes there's a communication error, or one group, and I know I've talked about these guys before, is their reporting to senior management was just the repair cost of their systems. It was just the parts cost of their systems, not even the labor or shipping or any of the other stuff or brand or anything. And the repair center was overrun in products. But when I brought it up in the wrap-up meeting, and the general manager was there, and he was like, "Why am I here? What's this about?" And I said, "It's about you spending $3 million a quarter on failed products and not understanding that actually is happening." Oh, and he looked at the CFO and said, "We only spend $50,000 a quarter on this." And I said, "That's only the cost of the screws you're putting into the system to hold it together." And you give 2 brand new units to every customer that buys 1. That's why your manufacturing is so busy. It's not because of sales, it's because your product sucks. Yeah.
Did you use that word?
I did. I did.
Good.
The rest of the group was just looking at me aghast. And I says, look, dude, you know, and he stopped and said, well, and it was a medical device used in emergency rooms. Well, does this harm patients? I said, you have a technicality because your product's only used after a person is technically dead. It's a life sustaining until they can revive somebody. And so the FDA doesn't count it as causing harm to somebody that's already passed away. And, but otherwise, because and I said, do you realize that the only time your product fails when it's actually functioning with a patient, and then the emergency room people have to scramble to go to the plan B or the second stuff. And many times they just skip your product and put it in the corner and do something else. And he goes, but customers always complain. And so not only a lack of vision for reliability of their product, but a structured system that just blinded the senior staff to what was going on. And that was beyond not having a vision. That was just having blinders on.
And I want to bring up reputation. And it's a small word with a big concept. Mm-hmm. I'll go back as an example. Toyota, years ago, and I'm sure it's still true today, but Toyota, I'm thinking in the late 80s, early 90s, mm-hmm. was building a reputation for a product that lasts.
Yeah.
And then comparative, and you can compare it to some of the domestic automotive, did not have that reputation. And that reputation was worth a lot. It was worth a lot in terms of future sales, the word of mouth of people saying,
the cost of sale, just how much advertising and promotion to get your next new customer was 10x for Ford than it was for Toyota.
Yeah. And when you have, and this is why it's so important to understand cost from a life cycle basis rather than from a silo basis, mm-hmm. because if you're looking at only at warranty, you're looking only at the launch cost, then you're missing the picture. Because what is reputation? How does that translate into future sales? You might not be looking at that, at the savings on marketing and the loss of sales and the loss of business. And so you really need to look at the overall life cycle costing to bring that in, because reputation is so important. And I often don't see reputation as part of the strategic vision for reliability.
Yeah.
In other words, they don't really aim for that. They aim for something else.
Well, that was one of my early on challenges as a consultant. While I was still at HP, one of the divisions said, hey, and it was early in the laptop market coming around, right? And there was new updates and changes to batteries and changes to screens and all kinds of stuff on laptops moving very fast. And their senior staff called me in and said, we want to be number one in that brand for identity as a reliable product. We want to leverage the idea of being like a laser printer or the calculators, is that they just work. And the question was, well, how much better do we need to be than the competition to gain that reputation? And that's a tough question. And I
Yeah, and for how long?
And for how long, yeah. And so we ended up talking about, well, one, you got to stop being the worst, which you are now. That was the easy part.
Yes.
Stop doing what you're doing now because it's not working. And started that, but that became the rallying cry for the organization. It was a touchstone for many decisions over many different design cycles of their product that eventually improved it quite a bit. And I never followed up to find out whether they achieved their stated vision or not, but it was a good place to be with an organization that says, well, how do we really focus on gaining that reputation? And I says, well, it's not advertising.
No, it isn't.
It's got to be actually product performance.
Once you have it, I remember a book years ago, and I'm trying to think of the name. I think it was Jack Trout was the author, called Positioning the Battle for Your Mind. And I believe it goes into the 1980s that came out. But the whole concept of positioning and marketing mm-hmm. is you get a name like Xerox, and it suddenly becomes, let's go Xerox this document. or you get, Kleenex. I need some Kleenex, and on. You get when a product can gain the position in someone's mind, then that's a really powerful place to be. And reliability can be like that.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a long time. It takes persistence to get it, but you can lose it, and it's very hard to get it back once you lose it. But so that subject to reputation is so important, and as a both from a cost standpoint as well as from a marketing standpoint, and needs to be part of that strategic vision. Another one I was thinking of is safety.
Yep.
We don't often talk about it. It's not really stated in the definition of reliability. Not often. We do talk about it.
Yeah.
But even though it may be a small percentage, a safety problem can be a huge issue, both cost, reputation, and marketing for a company. And to me, that has to be part of the vision as well.
Yeah.
Like, how deeply what do you want to do to make sure you don't have a battery, explosion
fire.
or what have you.
Yeah. Well, part of it is this, the biggest difference, we started off, it's different than a goal, a function, probability, duration, environment in use. It's different in that it incorporates the reputation part, the safety part. How does it fit in with the rest of the business? Where does it rank on priorities for major investments and focus for program after program after program, as opposed to an individual program saying, hey, we've got our marching orders. This needs to be a low cost and it has to be this reliable. But part of it is that it frames the vision part, the strategic vision, and understanding that. Even though it's not quantified most of the time, it's a position part or it's reputation or branding, but it's almost always focused on the customer is a part of this process because, we can be profitable, but we will lose our customers if we don't take care of the basics kinds of things.
Absolutely. So many things come to mind as to how you create that customer link and customers that are loyal, which is a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you go to develop the reliability strategic vision with management, with employees, we're not looking for the placard. We're looking for a deep understanding of where you want to be, and including the different things that we've talked about. And then we can get on to the other steps of this reliability process. So it was just enjoyable to think about, and I hadn't done it for a while, as to what are the core principles of that first step.
Yeah. Now we got to rewrite the chapter,
I think it's in there.
I think it's in there, yeah. Yeah. If we keep talking about it, we should, transcribe it and add. But anyway, I think my big takeaway is that at first when you said, oh, we got to get a vision, I was thinking, I don't like that word, but it is the right thing. So I think it fleshes out well. I think the concept is good. Yeah, it's gotten a bad rap over time.
And that's what I've really enjoyed working with you, Fred, on this book, because what we really did is we put the concepts into words. We didn't start just with the words and then try to fit the concept to it. We actually dove into what the concept is.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if you got a question on this, it's not a typical thing you see in a reliability related book, is go figure out where you're going, is a vision as a company, as an organization, or as an industry even. Take a look at it. Let us know what you think. And if you got questions on it, and let us know. As always, last week I was talking about one of the questions received about sample size, and now we're on the other end of the spectrum of what's the overall arching concept there that we're trying to achieve as an organization. So we can span a lot of ground with what we talk about on the show. So let us know. Head over to accendoreliability.com/go/SOR. And there's a couple of ways you can leave a message for us there. Carl and I and the other hosts are available through LinkedIn and via our About pages on Accendo. So plenty of ways for you to get in touch. And we really do. We have a vision that you will get in touch with us. That's our vision. Yeah.
Very good. And we really look forward to hearing from you. That's a big part of what we do and enjoy it.
Yep, very much so. I guess engagement would be our big vision, is to have a engagement with our audience and in our community. Yeah. So anyway, thanks, Carl. Thanks for bringing it up. And we'll be back to talk about some other concepts in the book here in our next episode.
All right, great. Thanks, Fred. See you later.
Thanks for listening to Speaking of Reliability. We invite you to join the conversation. If you have a question or a topic that you think we should discuss in a future show, please let us know. You can find a comment box below the episode show notes, or just leave a note as part of a review on iTunes.